My name is Rick Burgering. I'm working for Fruition Partners in the North and Central Europe region. Fruition Partners being a part of DXC, a global scope, helping to implement service management solutions. And at this moment, we talk specifically about ServiceNow and how it works together with our partner Tanium. On Tanium side, we have Danny Hemminga also in the call. He will start in a minute with an explanation about Tanium. Danny, can you hear us fine? Is your microphone working?
I guess so, yes. Thank you.
Okay, cool. Hey, we can even see you, so that's super. Danny, an EMEA strategic alliance person. What do you do? What's your role?
Yeah, basically I'm responsible for the EMEA strategic alliances based on technology. So we have partnerships with not only ServiceNow, but also with Salesforce and Splunk and Google Chronicle. And I'm responsible for the go-to markets in EMEA together with our partners like DXC Fruition yourselves.
All right, nice. Well, good to have you on board. And I'm sure that you will be able to explain a lot about the capabilities of Tanium. And then I'll try to glue that together with what we can do when we connect it to ServiceNow. A little bit extra about me. I'm a senior solution consultant and connected to the company Fruition Partners for quite a while already. So I should know what service management is about and what is necessary there. Now we can also illustrate the capabilities of that nice platform ServiceNow and the facilities, the possibilities that we get if we connect it with Tanium. How did we split this up? Short agenda, and we're now working on the introduction so that you know who we are and what we want to talk about. We're going to take a quick look at Tanium so that you know a little bit about the features, the perspective, the reason it is actually existing, the focus as well. And then I will take over and show an explanation about why we would want to pair it with ServiceNow, why we think the benefit is definitely worth it, why it is better together. And in the end, like I already said, we will definitely pick up some questions if they are there, but don't hesitate to push them into the Q&A section in the WebEx, because we can answer in flight if you want. So from here, Danny, you will start sharing, I believe. So stop that, and Paul, I can give you the rights to do it.
Thank you, Rick. I can share. Please tell me when you see my screen.
That is, if you move to presentation.
Okay. Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Rick. So Tanium at a glance, and welcome to have us on this partner webinar, and welcome all to the call as well. So what about Tanium? So for those who don't know Tanium yet or never heard about Tanium, Tanium is a unified endpoint management and security platform. We're not just a single point solution that do endpoint detection and response or discovery. We are really a platform. I will explain you a little bit more about this. So we are this platform. We have only, we work from only one agent. So this one single agent that we deploy on all types of machines, containerized, cloud virtual, data centers, workplaces, etc. We have this agent on those machines. And once we have this agent on the machines, we can do basically anything on that machine, right? We can query any type of question and we can take any type of action. So we originally existed and started and were founded in security space, but we see, because we have that agent there in the end user state and in the data centers, we can basically also come up with operational and compliance and risk use cases. So this is where the platform existed and started. We are not a workflow management system like ServiceNow or Splunk. We are really the system of action, right? System of query, system of action that are really enriching platforms like ServiceNow, like Splunk. And they can also come back to us and ask us to take action on any type of endpoint, right? So basically, you see on the left, you see the unified endpoints management part. This is really the, let's say, operational part, where we have, let's say, modules on asset discovery and inventory. This sits very close to ServiceNow, where we enrich the ServiceNow CMDB. Configuration management, we do patching on any type of machine. Performance monitoring as well, and software management, like deployments, uninstalls, etc. On the security side, called as unified endpoint security, we also enrich CMs, but we can also do data risk and privacy exercises, endpoint detection and response. This is where we started. We lately added the Google Chronicle security analytics module. So we started a partnership with Google Chronicle. This is very nice as well. This is also seen now as one of our products. And of course, vulnerability configuration management. So that's about, let's say, the platform. How does the platform work? So it all has to do with our unique architecture. On the left, we call this linear chain architecture, which was created by father and son Hindawi. So they were also the founders of BigFix in the past, which was sold to IBM and later sold to HCL. But you know, they started with BigFix, as you can see on the right, with kind of a legacy architecture, what we called hub and spoke or peer-to-peer communication architecture, right? So this goes over a wider area network, which is typically not really scalable. It's not really fast. And this is where a lot of companies struggle to get the right visibility and control there. So what you see actually on the left is what Tanium does is we create linear change, so IP ranges. And on those IP ranges, we put an agent. We put an agent on any type of machine there. Oh, go back. When I click it, when you see here, we have this one single management server in the middle. This is our only infrastructure we need. From there, we deploy the agents on top of any type of machine, and then the agents start to talk with each other in this linear chain, right? So the first in the chain talks to the next, and they will find their neighbors. And at the end of the chain, they will communicate back to this one single Tanium server. So this agent consists two types of things, right? The one is the sensor. The sensor will give you the ability to ask any type of question. For example, give me all computer names in your entire network, or give me all IP ranges in your network, or whatever type of question you want to ask. This goes via this sensor. If you want to take action, we can do the same. And we do this via this package. For example, killing a process, or do a Microsoft patch, or deploy software, or quarantine machines, or you know, all those things. Basically, this unique architecture is very fast and very scalable because we work over the local area network like this. You know, and we can basically take any question and take any action. This is really unique in the market. Basically, we also, I just want to elaborate a bit more on, you know, we put the agents on machines which has operating systems like Windows, Linux, Mac, IEX, Solaris, etc. But you also have machines in your network and like network and storage, right? So printers, routers, switches, etc. They don't have operating systems, so we cannot put the agent on top. But we can still see them because they're also you know, visible in this network, and our agents are capable of, you know, seeing them and also take, you know, information from them. But this is a bit basic information, so we can see them, you know, when they are in the network, when they are last seen in the network, are they still there? You know, we can you know, take information like IP address, MAC address, a machine name, manufacturer, open port, certificate information, and for 9 out of 10 companies, this is already more than enough information to, let's say, manage and get this information in a CMDB from out of those network devices. But actually, this makes ourselves unique. One example is the following. So this is the CIO from the U.S. Air Force, and normally those people they don't talk about commercial software vendors on stage, right? Especially not those U.S. Air Force type of companies. But actually, where Tanium helped him, and this is why he's talking about Tanium on stage, is that he was a while ago he was breached by the WannaCry breach, and normally this would take him weeks or maybe a month in order to fix his issue. So he wasn't aware of where the breach was, where the breach hit him. So actually, what Tanium did, we solved this issue in only 43 minutes. So what we actually did, we discovered his entire global network, very complex as well. So also his, let's say, assets in areas like Afghanistan. On the other end, we discovered his entire network. He was aware of only 800,000 machines globally in his network. We found over more than 1 million. So he wasn't aware, and this shocked him as well, he wasn't aware of 20% of his entire estate, due to the fact that normally you work with tools like SCCM and others that don't see everything because of their legacy architecture. Next to this, we found the 300,000 vulnerable systems. Then we took them in isolation. Then we did a Microsoft emergency patch on those vulnerable machines. And then we discovered his network again to see if everything was fixed. And all those actions in only 43 minutes. And this is why he said, he was very successful on this and he's on stage. There is also a YouTube video on this. I guess we will send you the deck later on so you can see this video and why he thinks Tanium is unique. So we talked about the Tanium platform. So like ServiceNow, we are a platform as well. So where ServiceNow is really a case management system, digital workflow management system. We are the system of action and system of let's say, query. And we have split up our core, let's say, platform where you have modules like Interact, which are connecting, with platforms also like ServiceNow and Splunk. Trends is our dashboarding. We have our operations suite where we have to discover an asset. Map is where we do application mapping, patching, deploy, and performance monitoring as well. On the risk side, we have comply, integrity monitor, and reveal. I won't go into depth. Security, we have the EDR and protection modules. But you have to keep in mind we are this platform that have multiple modules. Like ServiceNow is owning multiple modules in, let's say, the workflow space. We ramp up modules in the space of action. What does it look like from an architectural point of view? Typically on the right, and this is where customers evolved over time, and we see a lot of tool proliferation. So tools, the amount of tools exploded. So for every challenge that you had in the past, you bought a new single point solution or single tool. All those tools, of course, come with their tool licenses and costs. They all come with their application servers, their infrastructure on distribution servers. A lot of them also have their own agents. And this is on the right where you end up with, right? It's very complex. It's not really scalable. And most important is that you still don't have the 100% visibility. If you shift to the left, you see the Tanium, let's say, platform. We only use, as explained, this one single agent, which give you the ability to ask any question and take any type of action. And there you see the platform on top. And what you see as well is that typically we create 3 new modules a year based on the customer ask. And this is where we can really simplify IT, where we can really rationalize, really reduce the cost and reduce complexity in your architectures. Based on this, we have a lot of customer cases by capabilities. So I won't go into depth, but we will send you the deck. But for example, around CMDB enrichment, Barclays Bank there, they started to use Flexera, and they wanted to implement all those Flexera agents. This will cost them 9 months and a lot of infrastructure and a lot of extra costs. Barclays actually told us, we already have the Tanium agent. So dear Tanium, could you enrich Flexera with your single agent. So Tanium is there enriching Flexera, but actually we are also at Barclays enriching ServiceNow. But as you can see, we can control software licensing. So also, for example, with ServiceNow SAM Pro, we have patch use cases. If you want to be up to date with your patch and compliance there. We do proactive threat hunting, etc. Right? I won't go into that, but as you can imagine here, based on every IT risk operations security use case, we can bring extra value. And for that, and from this platform perspective, these are typically the example tool replacements that we do globally. This is not to bash any type of other software vendor here, but this is where Tanium is very unique. Where in the past SAP came in to re-platform all those ERP systems. Workday came in on the HR side. ServiceNow came in to start replacing all those digital workflow single point solutions. And this exactly is what Tanium starts to do globally in those technology spaces as well. Again, as said, we work globally. We're entering Europe. Well, I will tell you a bit more around that. So typically how we start engaging customers with our partners is that we start with the IT gap assessments. What does it look like? For example, this is an example of a customer, a global pharmaceutical, which is a Microsoft and ServiceNow unless customer. So they say our policy is to go either with Microsoft and ServiceNow unless they cannot do a particular capability. So we need third parties as well. In this case, the CIO, a lady, she said, who's telling me that Microsoft gives me the right information? So maybe I need an auditor from Microsoft. And together with a partner, they gave Tanium the opportunity to audit, let's say, their estate. So actually what we did is we only pushed our agents up to 500 devices in their current estate of 150,000. And it took us only 10 to 20 seconds to discover, let's say, those 500 devices and get some information from them. So typically the information we saw already in only those 500 machines is that 20% of this estate was not managed by SSCM. So they lacked visibility of 20% in those in the estate. We found almost 5,000 critical vulnerabilities and high-risk vulnerabilities on only 100 endpoints. Normally we found here Dropbox and G Drive. Normally we find PlayStations in the network as well. We found 80% of all those 500 systems required a reboot, and so on. We even found almost 1,000 missing Microsoft patches on only 100 machines and some outdated software as well. So you can imagine if you scale this up to, let's say, 300,000 machines or 150,000 or 100,000, you can imagine the risk of those companies, right? And this is exactly where those companies said, okay, we need Tanium to give the full visibility and control at speed, at scale, to also help support Microsoft SSCM and enrich ServiceNow. Then talking about our partner ecosystem, and those are the partners that really benefit from Tanium's data quality, remediation, and scale. We just signed a global partnership with Salesforce on the self-service and ITSM. We talk a bit more about ServiceNow because we are going to be in the Paris release one of the global premier CMDB partners with the Service Graph Connector. We're one of the most important 6 partners globally that enrich the ServiceNow CMDB, for example, and so on. We also just announced the Chronicle partnership. But these are just some examples of, let's say, platforms or vendors that really need the data quality and rely on data quality. This is just a snapshot because most of you wouldn't be familiar with Tanium in the Benelux region, I guess, because we're just starting this international journey. But in the US, we already have, let's say, over 600 customers. In the UK, we have almost 70 customers, and not the smallest ones, right? Why? Because the bigger and the complexer the network, the more value Tanium brings. And actually what you see here on this picture as well is that ServiceNow is there on the left as well. They are not only our partner, but they're also our customer for the same reasons. And just some few, let's say, notes and quotes from customers that use Tanium in combination with ServiceNow. For example, a global bank is, they say, for the first time we've been able to get a fast and accurate picture of our environments with Tanium. For example, a global logistics, in this case it's FedEx. They say we're all in with ServiceNow, but we realized that ServiceNow was weak at discovering unmanaged assets, and Tanium was simple, and Tanium's speed and scale was unrivaled. So we can go into more and more reference cases, but this is just to give you an example on how we work together with ServiceNow, how we bring value to ServiceNow. Actually, this is the bridge to Rick to let him talk about the better together with ServiceNow.
Yes, thank you, Danny, and I think you paint a pretty clear picture about what Tanium can do and how it works as a product. Now, of course, the aim for this session was to also share what it means if we bring it together, if we use it together with ServiceNow. So I want to talk about that a little bit. I want to remind all the attendees that we still have our Q&A section open, so don't hesitate to push your questions there so that we can pick them up at the end of the meeting. And I just want to encourage you to throw in anything that you would like to know. Danny and I are here. We could even connect to any specialist on both sides, so to speak. So don't hesitate. So what does it mean? ServiceNow and Tanium, and how does it actually help get benefit on both sides? So how do we actually get the outcome the right way? Now, of course, if you are familiar with ServiceNow, you are aware of the fact that ServiceNow has a CMDB. And if you start building up a CMDB, basically what you try to do is fill that blank canvas that the CMDB is to start with the items, possibly the services, configuration, anywhere in your infrastructure or maybe even virtualized. You throw it in those specific tables. If you get a little bit more sophisticated, you continue and you create tables, information, connections, relationships even, and you leverage different systems, different tools. Maybe you still use some spreadsheets, but you load all kinds of data into your CMDB. Sometimes it is consolidated, sometimes it comes from an external source even, and then what you try to do is leverage it in the platform of ServiceNow. So here we have that big layer CMDB in the ServiceNow scope. You have the CMDB in the scope of all those systems bringing it to you, and it can bring you a lot of information, a lot of overlap. And of course, the question there is, okay, how can we manage that chaos? How can we work the best way forward if we focus on trying to leverage the information in all those different processes where we want to use it inside ServiceNow? And remember, we want to use it inside ServiceNow. We always consider it to be a crucial part of any implementation. If we talk about anything that fruition partners would do while we implement ServiceNow, we always stress that we want a good configuration management setup, starting with listing the configuration items, proper information about it. So this is also what we put. Use the right tooling, use the right information so that we can help the processes. And they're listed on top. They go from HR all the way down to GRC. This often results in a situation that is not perfect. It's not ideal, and it will not give you all the information that you would like. Even though you're connecting tons of tools, sometimes customers even use 30, 40, maybe even more, and still it doesn't work because you have to manage the data as well before you can use it in a specific process. So now let's take one step back and let's take a look at, okay, why did companies choose to use ServiceNow? A lot of times the play is traditional, the play is relatively easy, and companies start to use ServiceNow in the IT service management sphere, which is the operational area. And what we try to do is then expand it to possible other areas like HR. But in all those different areas, we try to structure the work. So ServiceNow is used as the platform to coordinate workflows to coordinate the work, to make sure that this really big, messy, chaotic, unstructured way to communicate about work is going to a situation where we know, okay, who is doing what workflow do we follow, who has a certain responsibility, how do we manage SLAs, we get the right information to the right person or the right tool at the right time to perform the work. So that's the generic picture of ServiceNow. And that's also a core capability, and that's the reason why it is so well known and so well used at this point. If we then continue and take a look at what Tanium does, if we combine that with the same kind of a perspective from the platform of ServiceNow, Tanium does something similar, but not from a work perspective, from a workflow perspective, or creating a platform where tasks are positioned, created, maintained, and operated the right way. No, Tanium helps to structure the information that has to be leveraged, that has to be used to coordinate all those elements in play to deliver the services. So instead of having to work through a complex setup, managing different lines, mid servers. I don't know if people wake up middle of the night having nightmares around mid servers failing or data not coming through because certain network segments are not operating the right way. That's the problem that Tanium solves. Everything back to that slide that Danny showed, the way Tanium agents are literally connected and sharing their information and feeding it back to the server. That's what helps to facilitate that communication process. So if we build up the slide completely, now we have a similar picture where we literally know what is in play with all the necessary information, and we bring it to a platform of Tanium first, and then we can bring it to the platform of ServiceNow. In this case, we talk about endpoint management, holding the data, and providing means that allows us to take action, to actually go back to that machine and do something, find information, and so on. So looking at those, they really um, create a strong position and create a real big benefit if you bring them together. Because in this case, if we look at ServiceNow and Tanium literally together, we see that ServiceNow has at the core that workflow management and orchestration possibility, focusing on those different task areas, and also being the brains. That's what the picture here on the left side is actually showing us, and knowing where to go, what needs to be done from an operational perspective, possibility to deliver the right kind of service, but also from an operational change perspective, knowing, okay, what do we want to change and what do we need to change to make it work again, to actually make sure that it happens. We connect to Tanium, which is the bigger circle around here, saying, okay, where do you want it to happen? And what do we want to know? So Tanium is the hands and the eyes. Yeah, so together we have brains, hands, and eyes that provide us with possibilities, and that's unparalleled. That's something that maybe on specific platform focus or specific stack focus is there, but not in a broad scope like Tanium is offering. So in the end, the payoff and the real benefit we see is that we can control any workflow, any data, any action on any endpoint, as long as we have it installed or possibly have it in scope of the Tanium setup. Well, how does it actually work if we then bring it together from a let's say an informational perspective? If we look at how things flow between the endpoint and ServiceNow, we can say that from left to right, we bring information about the endpoint environment to Tanium. From there, we can assess and access that information about what the machine is, but also about running processes, take a look at risk and security data. That information can be enriched, can be combined, and can then be pushed or pulled, whatever you like, to the platform ServiceNow. And from there, we can interpret it. We can make sure that the CMDB gets the right set of information, but we can also connect it to GRC style things. And that's also connecting to the positioning that Danny did earlier. We say it's not just making sure that the items are all listed right. The horizontal discovery we tend to talk about, if we do it in its most simplistic way. Now we go a few steps further where we say, okay, well, we know more things. We know things about the actual item itself because we have possibly an agent running. And then what we can do is go to that specific item and say, we want to do some change. We want to actually connect and remediate with the speed at scale to make sure that the remediation takes place. And the 43-minute statement is a very, very powerful and nice example of it. It really indicates how fast you can be and also how fast you should be nowadays. And it's still an enormous, let's say, gray area or black hole for a lot of companies, especially for bigger companies, because it's so enormously difficult to get a grip on that ever-growing set of services and IT items that you have in your environment. Now, to make sure that we just touch the surface and give an indication of possible areas where we can work together with Tanium, if we look from the ServiceNow perspective or the other way around, where Tanium can help working with ServiceNow. We put some mini slides or micro slides in this deck. And we can see left to right, it works for that CMDB. It works also in the software asset management area, the GRC area, governance, risk and control, because we can do more than just reading what kind of version at some places there is. We can even try to deploy stuff. It helps for SecOps, security operations, and also the change control area from the GRC perspective. And there's even more because there's a lot of development going on. But now I'm slowly moving your direction, Danny. Is there anything you want to say or add to these use cases, that the generic ones that we put on screen, maybe?
Yeah, maybe we can go into a bit more specifics per use case, but then high level. So the accurate CMDB is you talked about this, right? So we really map to the CSDM 2.0, the ServiceNow Common CMDB Data Model. Yeah. So we bring in all types of information at speed, at scale, right? So the visibility there. On software asset management and software license reclamation perspective, we bring ServiceNow information around installed applications, but also software usage. Yeah. So, and this is where, also companies struggle a bit, right, to get that right information from a global asset perspective. On the other hand, ServiceNow then can also ask Tanium to uninstall software that is not being used. So we're starting with a lot of customers now, those big software license reclamation use cases, which is very powerful also for ServiceNow, having the right data in place. Themselves, they tell us, when Tanium comes in, also from some customer perspective, they say, when Tanium provides us 20-30% more relevant information, together we can make sample real. Actually, these are their statements. On a GRC patch and vulnerability perspective, we bring information around missing OS patches. We see a lot of customers that are not in control and don't know, they're not really in control around missing OS patch information or where they are there from a compliance perspective. We can also bring vulnerability information that automatically creates a change ticket in ServiceNow. And then ServiceNow orchestrates Tanium again to update and patch those systems. From a SecOps SOAR perspective, we are working very close with ServiceNow and the team of Marcel Snippe and Sebastian Drinkenberg, but also actually their EMEA CISO, James Blake. Again, talking about the eyes in the hands, really simplify SecOps. So we, try to engage multiple customers now also in the Benelux region that are running, let's say, simplify SecOps use cases where they have over more than 40 tools. Then Tanium comes in, we can rationalize tremendously and make the work more efficient. So when, let's say, a security incident comes in via a SIEM or via Tanium, automatically a runbook activity will start and asking Tanium, give me real-time information from those vulnerable endpoints. And this is what we give, any type of information, again, talking about the eyes in the hands principle. And on the other hand, the security analyst pulls a drop-down menu in ServiceNow and just can choose to take any type of action, right? So we re-platform a lot of tools out there and we make the world more efficient. From a change control perspective, you can imagine if you push a change to production, a lot of companies are not aware if the changes are approved or unapproved. So they're not really in control on their change management. So this is why ServiceNow also said, we see a lot globally, we see a lot of change failure. This is how they call it. I don't know if the customers here in the call also see a lot of change failure. And with this comes, of course, a decrease of the SLA levels. But actually what we can do, ServiceNow, and this is already there out of the box, ServiceNow provides Tanium the information around the change, and then Tanium at speed at scale, runs the discovery activity, and then we can label those changes. So we can label any type of endpoint and any type of information on the endpoint and say, okay, this change was approved, so it was okay, check in the box. But we see a lot of changes that were unapproved, and this is a risk for the company. So we can, directly, real time, provide the information back to ServiceNow saying, this is where all those unapproved changes sit. And last but not least, from an innovation perspective, people talk about self-service. You can imagine from an HR perspective, if you come in as a new employee, you have your laptop up and running, you open it, but you need any type of application, you go to that self-service portal, and it could be Tanium, to deploy the software on top of your laptop. And this is what we see with a lot of more customers as well. So actually, this was my take, but I'll give you a little bit more information around those specific use cases.
I would almost say it's a sneak peek, but it's quite a lot of information already. And there's also more coming. There's constant development going on as well. And my understanding, our understanding is that there is a slight overlap in some of the areas. If you look at the different platforms, the different names that you drop from a Tanium perspective, but actually you bring together a lot of the areas that do make sense in this area. We talk about actually allowing software to be installed, but also be uninstalled, combining it with patching vulnerabilities and stuff like that. I think that's very important.
Yeah, so exactly, Rick. So the overlap sits a bit in the discovery and ServiceNow discovery piece, but the most important thing is that we can also, really add value in the discovery phase as well. If you already use ServiceNow discovery in the data center and cloud area, you still have to do your end user estate. This is where Tanium comes in there. On the other end, it is more in the broader perspective. If we can enrich the platform with 30% and 30% more relevant, real-time, accurate data, this will, bring a lot of more value to the platform ServiceNow.
Yeah, absolutely. Fully agree. So let's take a look at what we then see if we just highlight it from a use case perspective, look at the value. So we can add real-time information to the CMDB, which is a big plus anyway. We can have more control on the IT and software assets, which means that you can almost create a business case from this directly, especially if you look at the software asset management area. The patching compliance steps, that can be a burden. It's almost a continuous effort, and the better you can automate it, the better you can check it, the better you can evaluate it. It will also help, definitely. And managing the change risk, I think that was pretty well argumented by Danny already. And also the orchestration and automation, if we talk about the security operations area, is a nice one. But you don't have to do it all in one go. And there can be separate business cases for, let's say, separate companies and perspectives. So most of the time, what we see is that you choose a certain area. These are indications of possible business cases where you say, okay, I want to simplify IT and make sure that instead of having to dig deep and find my way, fight my way through a lot of detail, I want to just get the correct overview and have a platform help me. And that can be that chain where you go via ServiceNow with Tanium to get that information. You can improve your SLA levels depending on where you are right now. It might be ever important, but it might be specifically relevant nowadays as well. Increase the value, and this is a nice one. An investment in, let's say, that software asset management area has two legs, to walk, to run actually, because you need a proper investment to have it inside ServiceNow. You need a proper investment to get the data to work with. That could come from Tanium. And then in this case, the suggested enrichment is 20-30% real-time data, but it comes close to that same kind of percentage if you talk about value, because it really helps to accelerate from both ends. And if you start it from the start, if you bring it to ServiceNow from the start, it will also help the implementation. And because there's always a big hurdle of actually having that baseline, that fundamental level of understanding of where your CIs are, what they do. Well, if you have that also via Tanium, then you have a big benefit. So that's about what we want to share, at least that is the deck. I see there are some questions. Danny, were you able to see the questions already?
Actually,
And
I don't see.
can you maybe pick up the first one?
Which one?
Can you explain a bit more on how Tanium works for unmanaged devices?
Yeah, so actually, what I mentioned at the start is when you have, we can only manage devices where we have an operating system on top and the agent installed, right? So where we don't have the agent installed, we have our discovery module. And from that point on, we can still see them. So, and maybe Rishi, we have Rishi on the call, and now we have him on the call. Let's use him there. Rishi, can you talk a bit about?
Can you maybe introduce him a little bit?
Oh, sorry, Rishi Garrett. He is responsible for our solution consulting, let's say our TAM organization in Benelux and Nordics region, and working for Tanium already for, I guess, 4 or 5 years. Rishi?
Yeah, thanks, Danny. Yeah, so on unmanaged devices, there are a number of things we can do. We can see them, as Danny mentioned. Our agents will scan the network around them, and they will be able to see these devices and identify them. On top of that, we can also scan those devices, so we can do an unauthenticated scan on those devices and see which ports are open and possibly see which vulnerabilities they might be that could possibly affect those devices.
Okay, but you cannot go in and do changes, right? Because you don't have an agent there.
No,
so based on the fact that they are close to another agent, or at least inside a line of sight from an existing one, you can see them and find them, right?
Yeah. So what we do now is we can do an unauthenticated scan. We are actually working now on a new capability which will allow us to do an authenticated scan, which means that if we have the username and password for those devices, we will be able to extract some more information from them.
I see. Okay, thank you for that. I hope that answers. And of course, there's a need for additional detail. We are very willing to share information around that. Another question is, where do companies traditionally start? What's the first step when they start with Tanium? I think it's good to also mention something about what we could provide. You already mentioned the gap assessment, but this question is around, okay, what do you sell most? What does usually happen if companies start with Tanium?
I guess also Rishi, the floor is yours, man.
Yeah. Okay. So there are a number of starting points with different customers.
What is most used? What do you sell the most? Very simplistically said.
Okay, probably the most is well, it's twofold, I'm afraid. It's we have security customers, and they're looking mostly at our EDR solutions.
Yeah.
And we have the more operations leaning customers, and then it's very much on the discovery and asset management side.
Okay. So we see it here in the security area. You say, and then at the operation area.
And the operation areas, then specifically with discovery and asset management. Yeah.
Okay. Rishi, another question comes in from Patrick Oudshoorn. So Tanium is not able to see the workstations of the people working from home and not being connected by VPN. Is that right?
No, as long as we have our agent on the endpoint, then we can see them when they're working at home. They do not need to be connected by a VPN, but we do have to have our agent on the endpoint.
Yeah. But this is actually also where, you know, we see a lot of companies struggle, where, for example, we see companies with, I don't call the other names, but they use other, let's say, offerings in the workspace there and work from home space, but they cannot manage their own agents. So they don't know where their agent sits, and we can see them. So we know exactly where the agents sit and where the agent is removed. So we can manage them actually as well. And this gives us a lot of more credibility there and a lot of more overview.
Yeah.
He said that's where Snow fails.
Yeah, Snow, ServiceNow. Be careful what
Snow, ServiceNow.
I don't know. If people say Snow, I always say that's something else. ServiceNow is Service, but that's a different discussion.
Yeah, but actually, yes. So yeah, exactly. This is where we help out. We have, let's say, a very strong, powerful message around work from home. And also, you know, ServiceNow also has a great program around a digital workplace. We have the work from home. So if you combine those two, you have a very powerful message.
Yeah, I see another interesting question has come in. How do we ever get approval to install an agent that can see everything? That's a fantastic question. Of course, it is double-edged, being able to see everything. I think one of the main things is we provide a very fine-grained role-based access control on top of Tanium, so that we can limit what each of the Tanium operators can actually see. Yeah, so we can cut down and make sure that people are only seeing what they need to be able to see.
Okay.
On the other side, it is a main selling point, of course, to be able to see everything. And we a large majority of our customers, especially in the US and in the UK, are MOD customers. So there is really, there is no problem even in very highly secured environments.
Okay, I get it.
Another one came in. I don't know how long we have, but you know, we can take this one, I guess. Also from Patrick.
Yeah, go ahead.
Patrick is active. If you find unmanaged devices and have credentials, you can force installation. You can force installation of the agent.
That is correct, but you're right. We have to have the credentials to be able to force the installation, and there has to be some way. I won't get into the technical details now, but there has to be some openings on the endpoint so that we can actually transfer our software onto the endpoint. But
actually,
we have the credentials. We have an open SMB. Then we can actually push the agent onto the endpoints.
But here it comes back to where the power of, I think, Fruition Partners sits as well, into the management of change of organizations. Because I was talking with Ruben Klein and Heike Rook and Edwin van der Heuvel from ServiceNow also last week. We have a good relationship. They also said, you know, how can we solve this problem of, you know, the implementation and, you know, the reluctancy of, you know, getting those credentials, getting, you know, the implementation accelerated. But this also counts for us. But you know what Rishi mentioned as well. And you saw, let's say, the U.S. Air Force use case. When there is a need, when you need to push that red button, the organizations are willing to push out the agents anywhere if they need help, right? So most of the times this could be the compelling event from a security perspective.
Yeah. And I think we could almost talk another hour about these kind of questions, because I also hear the opposite, where especially having those credentials is a challenge. So trying to have an agent installed while loading an image or something like that is something that is necessary. You cannot push it later because those credentials might not be there. And that might also be a result of rules and regulations. So I think that it's a common challenge for any big company. And I think there's a way that this could help from an agent perspective, from a data perspective. That's super good. Thanks for those questions. And I think that it really helps to get a better understanding of what Tanium capabilities are and how we can connect it with ServiceNow. The last thing I would like to do, Danny, is an indication, or try to give an indication of what would be a first step for anyone interested to see more, to have more. Let's say you are currently a ServiceNow user, you have ITSM, you would want to know if and what Tanium could do. How practical could it be? You mentioned an IT gap assessment. What would be your first step for?
Yeah, that depends of the need. So if a customer needs a bit more information, you know, not only speak to the ServiceNow owners of the or the head of service management, or maybe you know, the enterprise architects want to look into this as well. It depends on the customer. So we have a lot of European customers now starting with RFPs around CMDB improvement programs. They're popping up everywhere, I can tell you. So this is where we work together with ServiceNow or separately with this customer to, talk to them about, what we can bring to the table, how we can help ServiceNow Value. On the other end, we also see customers that have programs like Simplify SecOps or Simplify IT, or they need to rationalize cost. So it depends what the entrance is. We also see customers now, we have 2 customers in the UK, actually this week, where we talk about software license reclamation because, due to COVID, they need to reduce costs. They cannot, they don't have a program around, resource management, but really around how can we reduce cost and create quick wins around software license reclamations. For example, contracts with Adobe or Visio or, a lot of software that's very expensive that's not being used. So we can come in with ServiceNow and yourselves as Fruition here to identify the real gaps, talk about this, and then, start in this process of, showing the value together. But I guess we really need to understand the customer challenge first.
True. Yeah,
but this is where you're leading.
Definitely want. I'm just trying to, see from a practical perspective. Is there a test image you could use, or what would you first deploy? Get you just use it to sniff around and maybe find some of those options. I don't know. How practical does it get?
I would always recommend, a partner in the lead, like in this case, Fruition partner, to understand the customer, and then discuss with us what the next steps would be. Could be a demo, could be a gap assessment. This is something that we should discuss.
True.
But we can take it very pragmatically because this is how it should be, right?
Okay. Good. All right. Well, then I would like to thank you for this information, Danny, and your surprise sidekick, Rishi. Maybe for some people, it's very welcome to be here and help answering the questions. I would like to thank the audience for attending and being here to learn about Tanium and how we can pair it with ServiceNow to have an even better outcome. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to send us an email or let us know via any other way you can find contact with us. Also want to thank Paula for helping us with the setup of this session. The recording will be available, the slides will be shared, so I hope that all the attendees get all the information they wanted. And I wish you a very happy Tuesday.
Rick, can I question one more thing? We have the 20th of September, we have a joint demo session as well in a webinar form.
So, I forgot to mention, that's true. So this was only talk and just pictures, but indeed there will be a demo with more pragmatic overview, and indeed we will show how the setup is done and what kind of information you will see on the platform. And